Group C in CAF World Cup qualifiers stands for chaos, because on the final match day, get the popcorn, get the anxiety pills if you're from South Africa, Benin, or Nigeria, because Tuesday, it could be a historical day, it could be a horrific day, all the anxiety that will go into that match day, and then after 90 minutes, we will find out which nation will qualify to the World Cup between Benin, who are currently on 17 points, leading the group and are vying for their first ever World Cup appearance. South Africa, after a dismal draw against Zimbabwe, now don't have their own destiny in their own hands. And Nigeria are just hoping for a miracle, but we've seen miracles before in football. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the final match day, which team will advance to the World Cup. So heading into the final match day, after Benin got a historical victory away in Rwanda where they didn't play well, they had one long ball from the goalkeeper and that was it. They got a little bit lucky with the bounce, and Gernot Rohr and his side are trying to create history by qualifying for the World Cup for the first time ever. And this would be a somewhat redemption story for Gernot Rohr, who was heavily criticized by the Nigerians, but he goes to Benin. He gets this side playing organized football. And, Benin are not going to be the most attractive of sides because they've scored 12 goals, conceded 7. They only got their first away victory away in Rwanda. So all Benin need to do heading into the final match day is pretty much get a draw, and they should be qualifying for their first ever World Cup. And that would be a crazy achievement considering the other sides in this group. If Benin qualify ahead of South Africa and Nigeria, one of the more remarkable qualifications we've seen in CAF World Cup qualifiers, I think this would be more surprising to Cabo Verde because Benin have not been a competitive side in AFCONs or CAF World Cup qualifiers in their entire history. So if they did this, it would be sensational. It would kind of be similar to when Togo and Angola qualified for the World Cup in 2006. Gernot Rohr is ready to do an ultimate redemption story because of what happened with Nigeria, going to Benin and qualifying them to the World Cup. That would be a slap in the face to the Super Eagles. And then South Africa, well, they had a dismal draw against Zimbabwe. You could talk about they got unlucky. They hit the post twice. Lyles Foster, this guy is just terrible up front right now for Bafana. But you had 2 home games if you're Bafana. And I don't want it to get to this point where if they don't qualify, you're going to look at the Mokoena situation and say, that was the reason why they didn't qualify for the World Cup. Do you know how heartbreaking that would be for the entire South Africans who have had so much hope for their national team, and including myself, because I've been watching this team play for about the last 2 to 3 years, and you're like, wow, Bafana are actually a good team. Yeah, they don't have stars in Europe, but they have quality players. For the Mokoena situation to be the reason why you might not qualify, that would be so disheartening and really just a sour taste in the mouth for the next 4 years until the next World Cup qualifiers. But they had the chance to beat Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe are last place and have nothing to play for. It's a rivalry game. I get it. It was still not a good performance from South Africa, especially the first half. They showed a little bit more intensity in the second half, but every time they got 30 yards out from goal, they took a shot. It was so selfish. It was such sort of nerve-wracking performance, really frustrating, I think, from the South African players, and it could tell in the second half. Now, they drew the game 0-0. They had a couple of really good chances. Zimbabwe cleared it off the line, and Mbokazi, the dude is a stud of a defender. The kid is only 19 years old, but is such an elite defender already. He gets a stupid red card. You don't need to do it. Now you're going to miss the Rwanda game, one of the most important games for Bafana in the last couple of years. Stupidity for Mbokazi, but they should still have enough. Yes, Rwanda are a tough opponent. Rwanda have only scored 2 goals away from home. They've only lost 1-0 to Nigeria and Benin. Only beat Lesotho and Zimbabwe 1-0 away. So Rwanda don't really have a lot going forward, but defensively, hey, they could frustrate South Africa. They could be the party poopers because they have nothing to play for on the final match day. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the sort of mentality of the South African players. What do they do? Do they just keep up with the Benin result? It's going to be really fascinating heading into that final match day. And then the Super Eagles. Well, oh man, the Super Eagles. These guys are one of the more hilarious national teams around the world because they could have easily drawn that game against Lesotho. 2-0 up, you're cruising. Why can you not beat them 5-0, 6-0? Lesotho, yes, they are a competitive team. Highly respect them, but this is the Nigerian national team. A game where hey, we got to win 4-5-0. We got Benin on the final match day. That's going to be tough. You need it for the goal difference, and yet they were scrambling at the end. Nwambali almost made a horrific mistake, and Lesotho almost pounced at it with the open goal. That would have been a travesty if they'd drawn that game. An absolute travesty. Now they go at home, but Nigeria's sort of home record isn't the greatest. They've had 3 draws and only 1-0 victory against Rwanda. So if you're the Super Eagles, do you really want to play at home for this final match day? It just seems like all of that pressure just gets to the players. It gets to the national team. And Eric Chile, I mean, I can't really blame him at this point. Yeah, you want to blame him for the lineup choices, all this sort of stuff. But because there's been so many changes within the squad, within the federation, within the managers, that there's no continuity with this team. There's no chemistry. There's no tactics. So I can't really blame Eric Chile because they have done the exact same thing, the Nigerian national team and the fans, over the last couple of years with the managers. And yet there still is the same sort of players and there's no cohesive tactics within this team. But they still have a chance here. Now, if we go to the permutations and what could happen on the final match day, on the final match day, Benin will qualify for the World Cup should they win against Nigeria. Benin could qualify with a draw should South Africa fail to win against Rwanda. South Africa will qualify for the World Cup should they defeat Rwanda and Benin lose to Nigeria. Nigeria will qualify should they defeat Benin and South Africa fail to win against Rwanda, and Nigeria will need to beat Benin by 3 or more goals. I don't understand why they need 3 or more goals, but that's a story for another day, and we'll find that out on the final match day. Really, just for Nigeria, you just have to beat Benin, which is not going to be easy, and Gernot Rohr really wants to stick it to the Super Eagles. I think that's sort of his mindset heading into this final match day. Yeah, for Nigeria, just beat Benin and see what happens. Maybe South Africa will draw with Rwanda because of the pressure, but I don't still like the way the Super Eagles are playing. They could be playing a lot better. I expect a lot better from Adamo Lukman and Osimhen, even though Osimhen has been quite good throughout these qualifiers. You got to look at Adamo Lukman. The guy is the CAF Player of the Year last year. Where's that CAF Player of the Year? Yeah, he's had a horrific summer trying to force the move away from Atalanta, him and Gasperini having a fallout at the end of last season, but Adamo Lukman should be playing a lot better. They need their stars to show up on Tuesday. If the stars do not show up on Tuesday against a very gritty defensive Benin, the Super Eagles will miss another World Cup, and that will be a discussion here on the channel of how Nigeria have gotten to this point of missing back-to-back World Cups, but it could all be forgotten if you just beat Benin by a convincing scoreline and hope South Africa draw. But this is going to be awesome, people. This is what CAF World Cup qualifiers is about, and that's why, for me, it is the best World Cup qualifiers in the world. Yeah, you can talk about UEFA, but UEFA have the San Marinos and these sort of nations. CONMEBOL is a disaster now with so many teams qualifying. CONCACAF is a little bit exciting nowadays. AFC is pretty good with the 4th round, but CAF World Cup qualifiers, it's just drama. It's drama FC. It is Game of Thrones scenarios out there. And that's why I love it and I love covering it. And now we get into that final match day on Tuesday. You know we're doing a watch along. So stay tuned for that here on the channel, people. We're doing a watch along on the final match day for these 2 games. If I gave like a prediction wise of what's going to happen, I feel like there's going to be so much pressure on Nigeria to win that game that I'm a little bit worried that they're going to feel the pressure and they're not just going to, play their own game and feel a little bit confident. There's so much monumental pressure on this national team every time they play that you worry about the psyche of the players, the media, the fans. I mean, remember the last time there was a pressure game in Nigeria? They drew with Ghana and didn't qualify for the World Cup. So could that same scenario happen again? Possibly. Now, for South Africa, I mean, they just need to get a 1-0 victory, 2-0 victory over Rwanda, which is possible. And I think still, Hugo Bruce said before these qualifiers, we will qualify. I mean, before this window, we will qualify. I'm expecting that, Hugo Bruce. I'm expecting that. The guy was so calm and collective. He's very much a calm and collective character, but you got to now put some pressure on your players. You have to put pressure on all of these guys to step up on the final match day. And you're just going to have to hope, if you're Bafana, that you win the game and hope Nigeria do you a favor. It would be the most hilarious situation if South Africa beat Rwanda and Nigeria just draw with Benin, and that would allow Benin to qualify for the World Cup. That would be, for me, a hilarious scenario because then, South Africans are going to blame Nigerians. But overall, I'm just super excited. This is what international football is about, and this is everything about qualifying to the World Cup. It comes down to the final match day in this group. I mean, are we going to see Benin qualify for the World Cup for the first time ever? That would be sensational, and we will be there no matter what. But my final prediction, I think Nigeria and Benin will draw 1-1. South Africa will narrowly beat Rwanda 1-0. And yes, I do think Benin are going to qualify for their first ever World Cup, because if they qualify for the World Cup, amazing. Greatest achievement ever for the country. If they don't qualify, they're like, hey, at least we pushed it to the final match day. So All the pressure is on South Africa and Nigeria, and neither of those teams are leading this group at the moment. So yeah, I think Benin will qualify for their first ever World Cup. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, people. Who do you think will qualify from this group? Bear in mind, the runners-up are not going to make it to the next round. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Of course, for Tuesday's watch along of this epic group. And follow me on all the socials: Instagram, Twitter, join the Discord, all those links, description down below. But have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Till next time. Adios.